We are recording with Dr. Jim Thorp on Thursday, October 19th, 2023 at 2:11 p.m. Eastern Time. If you guys go into the description, you can find the link to his Twitter as well as the Twitter of his beautiful bride. And Dr. Thorpe's been on here a couple times before, I think 2-3 times before, and we were just talking beforehand about really the never-ending, never coming up short list of BS in the world that kind of makes it feel like the end of the world. And whereas I was saying I don't really care anymore, Dr. Thorpe had a different take, and he said you're more of a mindset of bring it on, like let's go. And I guess mine was a little more fatalistic of whatever. I'm a little more like, you know what, Titanic's going down. Let me just freeze to death in peace. Dr. Thorpe had a little more of a I'm going to jump in the water and fight the sharks with my own bare hands, which is kind of inspiring. So, Dr. Thorpe, could you maybe jump from there? Or if you want, you can introduce yourself to all the people who might not know who you are.
Well, first of all, Tommy, thank you very much for having me back on your platform. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you and to spend some time with you this afternoon. And my name is Dr. Jim Thorpe, and I am a board certified physician, obstetrician, gynecologist, and also board subspecialty boarded in high risk obstetrics, which is known as maternal fetal medicine. And I've been doing this now for, I graduated from medical school in 1979. So I've been focusing on pregnancy for over 44 years now. I'm 70 years old, and it's been a fun run. But it's very difficult for me to see the lawlessness of this current administration. They've just completely become unhinged. They're off the tracks. They're not following the Constitution. They're not treating the American citizens like they should be treated. It's very, very discouraging. It's really discouraging. So many things just in the last month. I looked at that public meeting, actually congressional hearing by chairwoman of the Select Committee on Energy and Commerce, Kathy Rogers, Rodgers, and two other Congress people with her. I think it was last month, maybe earlier this month. And the lawlessness that they've approached and demonstrated to the American people for the Department of Health and Human Services and the Secretary of that, HHS, Becerra, I think is his name. It's mind-boggling that they have failed to have any formal appointments for the
Dr. Thorpe. For everybody listening, I think we lost Dr. Thorpe. I'll text him right now. I do believe he said he was having some internet problems today. My internet's been fine, so please stay with me as I figure this out. This is always the most difficult part of the podcast is when a guest connection dies and I have to vamp and also contact them. So this is over 1,361 episodes. I'd say this is definitely the most difficult part, is trying to continue to talk to y'all so there's no dead air, while also with the other half of my brain contact the person whose internet just broke up. So I will continue to try to do that. Dr. Thorpe's awesome. Right? Trying to sure. So he's trying to rejoin. Yeah, Dr. Thorpe's a badass. You should go listen to the past episodes with him. He's an intense guy, and that's why I love it. Is yeah, even I was telling y'all, just before the show started, you're sitting here and I was just kind of like, yeah, man, I don't even care what happens next. Like, if a nuke's gonna come out of the sky, like, let's do it. Just end it. And he was saying he kind of feels the same, but he was saying like, bring it on, like, let's go. And it might be that that's the mindset I need to take. Maybe it's, I always say that we get to die. We don't have to die. We get to die. And you might as well go out like a champion. So maybe instead of moping around and dragging my fat ass all over the place like some weird snail, I should start leaning in and understanding that I'm already dead. So I don't know. Embrace it and move forward. Which, it's definitely hard to do. And as I posted yesterday, I mean, coming down to crunch time on turning the show into a profitable enterprise. And I have no real concept or really even hint of an idea of how I'm going to do this. It's terrifying. And come April of next year, the show is pretty much going to be out of money, and I'll go get a full-time job, and the show, for all intents and purposes, will kind of die. And that's very depressing because I've dumped my heart and soul into this over 4 years, almost 4 years. Less than 2 months, it'll be 4 years. In 1 month and 3 weeks, actually, December 12th, it'll be 4 years. And yeah, man, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared out of my mind. Um, Rumble doesn't really pay a whole lot. Spotify pays next to nothing. Got 1.5 million views last month on Rumble, and I made about $300. I need about 10 times that per month. I need to make about 15 million views a month. For reference, over 4 years, I've gotten a little over 8 million views cumulative. I need to get almost double. So over 48 months, I got 8 million. 16 million would be what, theoretically 96 months. I need to immediately start getting per month in views what should take 96 months. Um, that is internet's really screwing up. No problem though. I know how to talk. I know how to run my mouth like an idiot. Uh, if you can't tell, the fact that my mind immediately went to and my meandering thoughts immediately go to how am I going to pay for the show? You can tell that that's been on my mind. I've not been sleeping well because of that. And my focus really isn't even on whether or not we have thermonuclear Armageddon. Like, I'm not concerned about that because that will imply that I don't have to pay rent anymore, which would be cool. That'll be Gucci. But that's kind of where I am right now, man. It's be lying if I said it wasn't deflating me. It's I think I'm a pretty hard-headed dude. I think I take on huge endeavors and big goals and don't want help. And I pride myself on defeating enemies and achieving what I thought was impossible. This is definitely this is the most challenging Rubik's Cube. When you like get to the end of a test or something, if anybody was a science major, fucking calculus or OChem or genetics or whatever. Oh, here he is. I think he's rejoining. I think he's back. And the good doctor is back with us. I was just filling the air, just running my mouth like an idiot, just vamping. Dr. Thorpe is back with us now.
Not sure what's going on. I'm sorry about that interruption. The exact same thing happened on an earlier meeting. My internet's working fine, and as soon as I get on the Zoom, my internet goes down.
Don't sweat it. Zoom's also just, as someone that uses it every day, it's also just a total piece of shit software. It's not a good product.
No, it's
I'll
not.
I'll continue to use it because it's dirt cheap, but make no mistake, man, this is, you know, if you're in like a brand new Rolls Royce or something and the hubcap fell off, like you should be upset. That's a $400,000 car. But if you got in some 3D printed smart car, came off the assembly plant in China, made by some illiterate, malnourished slave labor, and it broke down after 30 minutes, you'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
No, nobody ever gets surprised when after McDonald's they feel like shit. Nobody's ever like, whatever caused this stomach ache? It's like, yeah, it's probably the 4 Big Macs, man. Like, it's just, doesn't make it any less worse. But you manage your expectations. So when Zoom crashes, it might be the internet. It might be Zoom is dog shit, if excuse my French. So I don't know. I don't forget what you were saying before it broke up.
Well, I was talking about this select
Oh
congressional
yeah, the
committee,
energy. Yeah.
this chairwoman Rogers on Energy and Commerce Committee, and all the horrible illegal maneuverings that the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the Secretary Becerra. Your audience should go Google that and listen to it. It's pretty outrageous. Maggie and I did an America Out Loud. We published something on it just this past week, and that's on. If you go to the American Out Loud platform and just plug in Maggie Thorpe and Jim Thorpe, that article will come up, and it's well cited and referenced. But it's pretty stunning to see how they feel empowered that there's just two completely sets of laws, one for them and one for us, and they don't have to follow any of the laws. So, Dr. Fauci has been making very large awards in the last 18 months when he didn't have the authority to do it, along with 14 other high officials. And Becerra and the HHS just blow off this congressional committee, say, well, we're not doing it. We're not complying. Kind of reminds me of the election in 2020. We're going to just, we have the most extensive voter fraud system in place. And, like Biden said, I don't need to get out of my basement. We're going to win. We have the most fraudulent elective system in place. And I'm going to win no matter how many people, whatever. It's really horrible. And then the other revelation that came out earlier this month, with Fauci having backdoor access to the CIA and making several, when you have a formal visit and you're entering policy making with the CIA and you don't formally log in and you're sneaking the back door, that just stinks to high heaven.
What is this? Enlighten me.
Well, Biden was caught. Several emails have disclosed that he was collaborating with the CIA in terms of rolling out these vaccines. And he wasn't signing in. He was going in the back door so that he could do it covertly. And it stinks to high heaven. It's very, very upsetting.
I'm not laughing because it's not upsetting. It's just, it's like, how do you make a situation worse?
Yeah.
Well, after everything, and again, future listeners, it's October 2023. After everything we now know, to just now sprinkle on, oh, and he was meeting with the CIA. I mean, you couldn't. It's like a third grader writing like a horror movie. It's almost comical. It's meeting with the CIA.
And it only gets worse. What then these nut jobs. I mean, the White House is loaded with cocaine now, and they detect cocaine in the White House. I mean, what in the world is going on with these people? And they're in great company too, because the other nut job, this Premier Justin Trudeau, allegedly, you heard what happened to him. I mean, this guy is just really criminal. I mean, apparently, did you hear about his trip down to India? The
No,
state trip
no.
down on, yeah, well, he took a state trip down to meet, some big political meeting, and allegedly he flies down there with a, a plane load of cocaine too.
What?
Yeah. And
Wait.
he's so stoned.
Uh,
This is not according to Jim Thorpe. This is according to the Indian government,
oh,
allegedly. Google it. And he was so stoned that he couldn't even make any of the meetings, and he was impaired. And it's like they found all this cocaine in his plane. This is not okay.
no,
This is like these
it's
people are off the rails. They think they're above the law.
he. Yeah, he wasn't meeting with nobody. He was meeting with he was meeting with the Prime Minister of India, Modi. Holy, PM Trudeau was in drug-induced stupor during the G20 summer dinner, alleges former diplomat, that he was in a plane full of cocaine. So the 51-year-old was in a plane full of cocaine and hiding in his room for 2 days. I mean,
Tommy, you can't make this stuff up.
PM Trudeau was also stuck back in India when the plane he arrived in developed technical stag and waited. He had to wait for the Canadian Army to send another plane to. I mean, the former the former diplomat in India also said that sniffer dogs found cocaine on the plane. He didn't go to the president's dinner. He was in a drug-induced stupor and refused to leave his room. I mean, like this is all bad. Does not almost just kind of you're about to like wake up, kind of like when you wake up suddenly, like you like kick something,
Yeah.
you're like sleeping. Like right now, I'm in a leather chair. When you're like on a plane and you're not really sleeping well, and you kick something, the person next to you kind of looks at you, and you kind of go. But if it's someone they'll look at you and be like, "You all right?" You'd be like, your ears are popping, you're 5 miles up, and you're like, you wake up and there's like some pretzels on your lap or something, and you're like, I just had the craziest. I just had the like, they're like, yeah, man, you were like shaking and stuff. You're like, I had this dream that like Trudeau had a plane full of blow, and they're in India, and they'd be like, okay, cool. Like, what do you want to drink, man? Like, the lady's coming back. It's one of those things that comes, goes, and then like as you're telling the dream to a friend, it starts to kind of sift through your fingers like sand. You're like, and then wait, what happened next? And then it goes away. That's kind of what this feels like. So Fauci met with the CIA and Trudeau has a plane full of cocaine. This is
And the
not
White
too.
House, the White House is apparently cocaine in the White House. Where'd that come from? I mean, and then you have Tucker Carlson's interview with this gay gentleman that alleges that he was meeting regularly with Barack Obama or Barry Sartoro, whatever his name is, and while he was in Congress in Chicago, and meeting this gentleman who seemed very credible, blowing cocaine, and apparently the male prostitute was apparently blowing something else in the back of a cab. This is all not this is not reassuring.
No.
Our country is in utter free fall, and it's very, very disturbing. The whole the whole Ukrainian war, the whole diversion of our treasure and massive money to to support this horrible war with this corrupt country that we corrupted, and we initiated the coup in 2014 and 20. I mean, it's just, and we're filling up with biolabs and in, in impinging upon the NATO agreements that we made with Russia at the collapse. I mean, this is all horrible. Um, it's all horrible, and now we're over with the Sixth Fleet and 2 aircraft carriers off the coast of Israel and Gaza. This is not pretty.
No, it's not. And again, I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's because I don't know what other response to have. Like I don't know what to do with it. And kind of gives a little more credence to the idea that whatever power we see really is just window dressing. And I don't mean that in like the low hanging fruit, you know, the president's not in charge. It's all like, no, not that. But I mean, at a certain point, you do have to start looking at it, right? You see like the archetypal trust fund son, right? Blowing coke, whipping around, totaling Ferraris, and he somehow is heading up the multinational corporation that his dad founded, and you're like, he's not his dad. Well, it's anyone with half a brain cell realizes that, yeah, on paper, he's in charge, but dad put together a board of directors who are running everything. This guy's not even putting his pants on in the morning. At a point, you do have to you do have to start wondering, like, how much. I understand that the government is vast and that you can't really ever say whether it's pro or con that a single president is responsible for X, Y, and Z. There's just too much. You cannot possibly know everything. I get that. But I mean, it really is starting to seem like that is just the cheap mask that's in front of it. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever really doubted that, the military industrial complex, the intelligence, the intelligence community complex, biopharmaceutical complex, they're all kind of going into this event horizon of no return, of indescribable power and classification and technology. But I mean, it's kind of, they're not even really hiding it anymore, to where I don't doubt that President Biden, his son, I don't doubt that they're all a bunch of degenerates. That's not like something I can't like wrap my head around. But in the same way we saw the beast respond to President Trump being in office and then them taking the election from him, beyond a reasonable doubt that there is a shadow government. That maybe isn't a favorable term because it sounds too all right, entrenched power structure, unelected interests, whatever. That doesn't necessarily mean that when they put Biden in that they're on board with Biden. It could just mean that the friction is less. With Trump, the friction is so great. You go, "Oh, he's not in charge, man." The key might be you get someone to where the friction is so little that they'll go along with it. Like you can throw your gay pride parade on the front lawn of the White House. That's fine. We're sending another 100 billion to Ukraine. And so maybe you don't see it as much. It's a little more, the waves are in sync. Whereas Trump, it was like opposite waves. These are more kind of going like that. And maybe they're just kind of sliding out a little too much. The trust fund kid's getting a little too high. He's totaling a little one too many cars, to where even someone from the board of directors is going to be like, "Hey, you little shit. Like, your dad left you a pretty sweet spot, but don't think that you can't get got." I think that's what we're seeing. And I don't know if that helps or if that's even more disillusioning.
Well, that's a really good analogy. I think I can see that there's certainly a lot of truth to that. Um, I'm so concerned with the obvious data that has dropping literally on a daily basis that just really, really impugns the treacherousness, the lethality, the injurious nature of this whole vaccine campaign. It's it's just really, it's gone from the theater of the absurd to just blatant killing people. I mean, it was bad enough in February, March of 2021 when the Pfizer data came out, and they had what Pfizer had, their 90-day rollout data, Pfizer 5.3.6, the deadliest drug ever rolled out to the American population, and our government, along with Pfizer, including the HHS and the CDC and the FDA, tried to hide it for 75 years. And not only did they try to hide it, then they turned around and pumped up this propaganda, fifth generation warfare campaign to market it to the entire world as safe, effective, and necessary when they knew it was anything but. And thank God for the whistleblower that dropped all that in March of 2021 from Pfizer. And thank God for the federal judge that made them disclose that, of all days, 15 months later on April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2022. And sure enough, that 30-page document that I had from Pfizer was the exact same 30-page document that the federal judge made him drop. And how does this happen? And then it's bad enough that they try to hide it, but then they turn around and they promote it to the whole world. This is really disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. In that same now we have not hundreds of millions and hundreds of billions, but our federal government has propped this false narrative up with in essence, a colossal bribe of over $5 trillion to the American different sectors of our society to push this false narrative. And it's very deeply disturbing to me. And I think that everybody's finally waking up, that the American people are finally waking up. I mean, the American people, I hear various reports. I've seen a report, Dr. McCullough and others are reporting, I think Dr. Paul Alexander on their Substacks. I see that the new vaccine is having only a 2% uptake. Yet now I see other people saying a 25% uptake. Regardless of who you believe, I think those are two different products where the uptake. But this current administration, last month was saying, you need to go out and take this vaccine. The 7 vaccines that you have aren't enough. But now you have to take one. You have to take one every 6 months. The American people know. They see the reports. They see people, journalists like yourself, that put this information out contrary to their lies and expose the truth. This is really, really serious. And the 3 organizations that have pushed this in pregnancy globally, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, ACOG, the American Board of OBGYN, ABOG, and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, SMFM, they appear to be all completely captured organizations by this part of this $5 trillion, like every other sector. So my wife, Maggie, who's an investigative attorney and on my research team with me, and we put in that Freedom of Information Act request last year to HHS and CDC and the American College of OBGYN. And lo and behold, Tommy, we find that they're a founding member of the COVID-19 Community Corps, a founding member. They received millions and millions and millions of dollars in early 2021 with the sole purpose, and they signed an agreement which they are bound by this day. We proved it. We have 1,400 pages of communications between the HHS, CDC, and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. This is gross. This is illegal. This is unethical. They signed a contract, ACOG did, binding all 61,000 OBGYN doctors to follow their narrative, and they threatened them illegally with punitive actions if they didn't follow this false narrative. They took this massive amount of money, they spent it all, they enriched themselves, and they forced all their constituents to push this deadly narrative. I mean, can you imagine a pregnant woman, her first visit with an OBGYN doctor in the most sensitive, personal interaction, maybe in her lifetime, in an OBGYN office, getting counsel, trusting her OBGYN doctor, trusting that her OBGYN, but yet it wasn't her OBGYN doctor. Her OBGYN doctor has betrayed her. Her OBGYN doctor can't give her honest, informed consent, because if she or he does, they'll be fired, just like I was fired. It's horrible. It's gross. And to this very day, we prove that with the American College of OBGYN. I'm certain that the American Board of OBGYN and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, I'm quite certain, although I haven't proved it, that they have the exact same relationship as ACOG did. But to this very day, these people know better. They know that I'm right. They know that they're wrong. They've pushed this horribly dangerous drug in the most vulnerable population and continue to do so this very day, and continue to double down on threatening the constituents, including myself. So it's very, very disturbing. I'm glad that the American people are waking up and finally recognizing that the government is trying to kill them or depopulate them or keep them sick and injured. And so are the hospitals. You know, the hospital system that fired me on June 29th earlier this summer was SSM Health in St. Louis. I served them honorably and was according to the CEO, was a model physician for the system, was of utmost integrity and morality, and described as an honorable model physician, yet they had to fire me because for no cause, but they were running into financial difficulties, allegedly. Well, we find out that they took over $306.9 million from the same government, so that they are likely under the exact same contract. So they had to Tucker Carlsonize me, just like Fox News did to Tucker Carlson, their number one income producer. They just get rid of them, take the hit, because they can't handle, somebody speaking truth, and it's violating their agreements with the owners of Fox. So they execute their number one income producer. They did the same thing to me. They didn't want to fire me, but they took that massive amount of money. And if they didn't fire me, they'd be in breach of the contract, and they have to start paying that back, of which they can't afford to do. $306.9 million. And every other major hospital system in the United States of America is captured. I'm not trying to pick on SSM Health, but they're all captured. all the major hospitals here locally have and nationally have entered into the exact same agreements. They have a quid pro quo cooperative care agreement with the federal government that is illegal. The federal government is not allowed to enter into private agreements with private organizations that break the Constitution, that break the First Amendment rights of their employers and their physicians and their patients, and feed their patients misinformation that is lethal and deadly. They've lined their pockets. So wake up, America. Don't take any more vaccines. If you're in a healthcare system, wake up, fire them. If you're seeing a doctor, ask them what their opinions are on the vaccine. And if they don't come out and clearly tell you the truth, fire them. Don't ever go back to them. If you're going to a healthcare system, a clinic, you ask the physician, the administrator, are you willing to lose your job to save my baby's life, my child's life, or my life? If they say, yes, I am, they're lying to you. Otherwise, they wouldn't still have a job.
$306.9 million. And is that is that on the higher end, or how big was what you said, SSM?
SSM is one of the largest Catholic health care systems in the United States of America. Laura Kaiser is the CEO. It's a $9.2 billion company, mostly in the Midwest. That $306.9 million for about 8 to 11 hospital systems there. I was on staff at 8 or 10 of them. I did the lion's share of reading over the last 5 years. And I was their number one producer. I was the most published. And according to many, I was the most loved. And they didn't want to fire me, but they had to. But all the publications, and I have over 250 publications on my CV. Not all of those are through the National Library of Medicine, but my CV is available upon anybody's request. 250 publications, probably 60 or 70 just in the last 3 to 4 years, COVID related. And my former employer had all of my publications. Not once did they ever agree or allow me to discuss any of that data in a grand rounds or in a formal academic environment, or even privately to the physicians. Not once. I was just told, in essence, to shut up and keep, but they had all that studies, and they continued to push these drugs. And it's really just a horrible situation for the American people. This healthcare system is terminally corrupt.
Has there been any progression in the data that I believe, if I'm remembering, is it Dr. Fintouch? Has there been any progression in the data you guys showed on my podcast? I think earlier this year, maybe it was last year. Pretty damning data about the, what was it, 40 sigma points increase in miscarriages.
Yes,
can you maybe flesh that out a little more?
Yeah, that was actually a whistleblower, and that was
Canada.
a whistleblower, Michelle Gershman, RN, and she's a whistleblower from Fresno, California, and she's a postpartum nurse, a nurse that takes care of the women after they have babies. And there's the hospital system there. There were the administration sent them a letter in, I believe it was September of 2022, about a year ago, and basically saying that this is from their own hospital's data, that the fetal deaths, not miscarriages, now fetal deaths are the death of a baby in the womb, a preborn baby at 20 weeks or later, but before birth, that had risen to the largest number in the history of the hospital. They had 22 fetal deaths per month there. Michelle Gershman testified that prior to the rollout of the vaccine, she was only seeing 2 to 3 fetal deaths every quarter, every 2 to 3 months. So this is very concerning. And when you map out the exact, yes, the fetal death rate nationally in 2018, 2017, 2018, and 2019, when you aggregate those years, was in the range of 5.84 stillbirths or fetal deaths per 1,000 births, those 1,000 live and stillbirths, 5.84. But in 2020, when COVID hit, that stillbirth rate did not go up. It actually went down a little bit. So it wasn't COVID-19 that was killing these fetuses. It was only until after the rollout of the vaccine where Michelle Gershman and where I personally started seeing many more fetal deaths and many other obstetrical complications. So if you do the numbers and crunch the numbers, and that 5.8 or 5.85 stillbirths per 1,000 has a very small standard deviation, probably 0.5 fetal deaths per 1,000. So that went up to 29.3 fetal deaths per 1,000, which represents a 40 standard deviation surge. This is not just from her number crunching. This is from an email from the hospital administration. So that's pretty condemning. They're in a very, very highly vaccinated area. But if you go up to Vancouver Lionsgate Hospital, now this is also whistleblower from 5 different whistleblowers, Dr. Daniel Nagas, Dr. Mel Burchet, and 3 doulas, labor assistants, testified that there were 13 dead babies at Lionsgate Hospital in one day. And if you look at 2 other, that's like a massive, that's like probably a 300 sigma surge in fetal deaths. And the same things have been seen over in Ontario. That's in British Columbia, of course, 2 other whistleblower sites that have similar, not quite as staggering as Lionsgate in Canada, but that's what's happening in highly vaccinated areas. Now, I'm not seeing that in my practice because in the Midwest and in Florida, our vaccination rates are much lower. But there's no doubt from many whistleblowers and from many data sets all over the world that this is a bloody disaster, not just in pregnant women and in children, but in all peoples.
300 standard deviations. I mean, okay, so I have failed out of almost every math class I've ever taken, just full disclosure. But you can't chalk that up to chance, right? It's not a freak day where
No.
Okay.
No.
So then, I mean, it's kind of like, if you ever go back and watch any, like 9/11 coverage, most you can always hear some sort of, if it's not just gasping, from the news anchor, it's all some iteration of this is intentional, right? You can hear people screaming it, video camera on the street, it's New York accents, bro, this is on purpose, this is right. But it's the horrifying realization that not only did a commercial airliner crash into one of the tallest buildings in the world, but that a second one did, right? It's 8:46 a.m. and then it's at 9:02. I mean, that's, if that happened twice in a decade, that's wild. 16 minutes apart. It's like, okay. Then it just comes down to who's doing this and why are they doing it. It's pretty clear it's on purpose. Is this, sorry, my ear's itching. I have no doubt that there is no other explanation than it's the vaccine. And it's any reticence I have towards making a conclusion isn't because I don't think people are capable of this. I think, any cursory studying of the last 100 years, I mean, you can see the darkness of people, right? Namely the Holocaust. It's just that I'm not sure which one it is. Is it pushing it out as a form of control? I don't think it's just money making, because as we're seeing with the Ukraine war, and as I said during the whole pandemic, they figured out the money making scam 120 years ago. It's war. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's war. We're seeing it right now. It's just war. Kickbacks, all of it. So I don't think they would have gone through everything they did for COVID just for money. Although they made a killing, I don't think it's just money. What I'm divided between is, was it simply a rollout for a form of digital control, right? If it all went swimmingly, we were to all have passports on our phones, and you can't go into a store, you can't, do whatever, you can't, right? It's supposed to be total control, and that didn't work out. Maybe their war plans were incorrect. It was for internet control. It was to usher in, just like the Patriot Act, you use 9/11 to usher in internet surveillance. You would use this to usher in government control of the free flow of information. Is it that, or is it the intent to not just depopulate, but also to prevent the future growing of the population by attacking pregnant women? Which, they're not too. It's not looking too good. One, it's like if that was just on its own, you go, yeah. I mean, I don't know if they're depopulated, but this is the same group of people that are constantly talking about your carbon footprint, sustainability, renewability. Smaller cities use less. The same people telling you that really for everything we do, humans are bad, from energy production to farming, that there's too many of us. When they're the same ones who also are pushing this vaccine, you're starting to look a little guilty. So and obviously we can't know the answer. It's, the answer to that isn't going to exist in a FOIA request. It's going to be in some, special access program somewhere. But was this just totalitarian control, or was this depopulation? Again, not that you have the answer, not that I have the answer. We're both speculating wildly, but I don't think it's money. And I certainly don't think it was just an organic pangolin virus.
I agree with you. I think that the totality of evidence, when you go back and you look at the globalists and the statements that they've made, are really, really condemning. I mean, and you can go back for a decade, or you can go back for 5 decades, and there's a consistent, recurring theme from a select few of extraordinarily powerful and wealthy people that have put out that they want they want to depopulate the earth for the benefit of the earth. They are, and I believe that's a satanic agenda. I believe that's an agenda. Listen, Satan owns this world. He's completely in command of this world, and he controls all the world leaders, some more successfully than others. So I think that, I try to look at this as, this isn't like global delusion happening to everybody at the same time. This is a spiritual battle, and if you don't buy that and you don't understand that, you're missing the point. I think that as St. Paul said in Ephesians chapter 6, we're not in a war against other human beings. Our enemy is demonic orchestrators of spiritual darkness in the world that own the world. And to the extent that you understand that, you will understand this problem. This isn't from Fauci or from Obama or from, this is from a spiritual authority far above them that own them, and it's Satan. And Satan is in control of the world. You know, in Jesus's ministry, when he started his public ministry, you know, after he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and he met with Satan, Satan took him on a world tour and says, I own this. I own this world. I can give you anything in the world you want. Just bow to me and kneel to me. Jesus didn't argue with him. Jesus didn't say, no, you're not in the control of the world. I'm in control of the world. No, he subjected himself to the structure of Satan, who owned him because he was in the world. So that's what we're contending with. We're not going to have any clarity, any righteousness until King Jesus comes back for the millennium and straightens things out. This is a disaster. This is genocidal. This is a total plan of depopulation. They repeatedly, over and over and over, have stated this, and in their own minds, they believe that they're doing the world a favor. Listen, they broadcast it out. They wrote it in stone, like God wrote the 10 Commandments on the Georgia Guidestones. They wrote 10 commandments, and the first one was to limit the world population to 500 million. Interestingly, that monument was constructed in 1980, and it was destroyed under mysterious circumstances about a year ago, which is very, very interesting. But, you know, just go down over the last 5 decades and you'll see, Google it. I mean, I've written a book. One of my new book has a whole chapter on the quotes of some of these world global elitists, you know, whether it's Fauci or whether it's Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I mean, I believe that there is an agenda. The agenda was to roll out this vaccine as a huge moneymaker and as a future platform for a $1 trillion cash cow. And by the way, will also depopulate the earth. I think they knew that. I think that's been in the plan. I think that all this evidence points towards that if you do your due diligence and you read the book by, The Global Predators, We Are the Prey by Dr. Peter and Ginger Bregan, or you read Malone's book, or you read the book of the real Anthony Fauci. Read these books. They put out, you know, look at the testimony of Dr. David Martin earlier this year. He testified in 2 places in Europe, very, very important presentations. One of them was at the Brussels European Parliament, and the other one was about a week later, I believe, which was even another hour presentation to Strasbourg, in Strasbourg. And there are 2 completely different presentations, but he lays down undeniable, irrefutable evidence that this was planned. I mean, literally since the turn of the century. All the patents, all of the peer-reviewed publication, all of the statements, it was clearly planned. And with a government rolling over this lethal mRNA vaccine, and now in bed with the military medical industrial complex, I think it's a form of control. It's a form of tyranny, and it's got the world captured. And they're moving forward with it, regardless of how many people protest, regardless of how dangerous and deadly it is. They're continuing to double down, to persecute the truthers, including yourself and myself and many others who proclaim the truth, and continue to make false claims that the American people and the global population need to take these death shots. It's very, very concerning.
Global Predators by the Bragans is, I think, probably the most comprehensive take on the entire pandemic, before, during, after. That book was terrifying, and it wasn't grandiose. It wasn't like fanatic or romantic. It just kind of just laid everything out.
Lays all the evidence out on a timeline, lays all the patents out on a timeline, lays all the statements, all the medical publications on a timeline. There's no really other conclusion you can come to, except that this was pre-planned as a, as a kind of disaster capitalism to kind of pump and dump, if you will, and push this out as a life-saving drug and spend $5 trillion to promote it, a deadly vaccine. And look at where we are now. I mean, many of the experts agree the rollout of this vaccine, was fraudulent. They prepared a legal and medical case scenario where nobody could redress it. Nobody could oppose them. They rolled out the false narrative that the drug that we knew was safe and effective before the pandemic was hydroxychloroquine. We knew it was safe and effective. We've been using it in medicine, even in pregnancy, the most vulnerable population, for 40 years. It's been used as a drug in women of reproductive age for autoimmune disease, lupus, and dozens of other autoimmune diseases. And by the way, women of reproductive age have those autoimmune diseases much more frequent than men do. The age-related matched cohort of women are at anywhere from 3 to 10 times greater prevalence of these autoimmune diseases than men, for reasons that were not entirely clear. Many of them, ironically, probably related to other vaccines. But be that as it may, what we find out is that this was orchestrated. This was planned. This was the deadliest drug ever rolled out. It was planned, and they wanted their claws in this new mRNA technology. It's very, very frightening. They are responsible for suppressing hydroxychloroquine and suppressing early treatment. Never mind the vaccine, just with COVID in of itself. They claim that the Worldometer now claims that there's been 7 million people globally killed by COVID-19, not the vaccine, just COVID-19 right now, and over 3 times that many injured. Well, do the math. That's 28 million people globally that have been killed and injured just from the falsely impugning early treatment. We now know that early treatment, the McCulloch protocol, the Zelenko protocol, Corey, Merrick, Bartlett, all these, Ben Marble, the effectiveness of early treatment is way north of 95%. Ben Marble says 99%, 300,000 early treatments with only 6 deaths. Do the math. That's 99.99% protective. So by falsely impugning hydroxychloroquine, like they did, the military medical industrial complex, controlling all the medical journals, putting out fraudulent Lancet journal in May of 2020 with Mandeep Mehra saying, oh, we have 95,000 patients that we've treated globally on multiple different continents, and hydroxychloroquine is dangerous and it's ineffective. That was all made up. That was all false. Can you imagine the seriousness of falsifying a report?
I'm here. My camera messed up.
Oh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So can you imagine that they falsified that report? We knew it was fake, and we challenged them on that, and it was fake. They retracted it 5 months later. 3 years ago, this month, they retracted it. But the damage was already done. None of the news outlets, none of the media picked up on any of the reports that it was retracted. It was buried deep in the October Journal, and nobody paid attention to it. The damage was done. The whole world stopped using hydroxychloroquine in May of 2020, and practitioners that wanted to use it, like myself, were targeted, were censored, were threatened. And we knew that it was effective. Fauci knew it was effective. Trump knew it was effective. We have studies from 2004, 2005 documenting that it was effective. The EUA, the emergency use authorization, Tommy, was illegal. You can't invoke an EUA when there's effective alternatives, off-label alternatives. You cannot invoke it. That's why they illegally, falsely impugned hydroxychloroquine. So they've killed what? You're looking at 28 million people they've killed and injured just from falsely impugning early treatment. Now, what about the vaccine? The vaccine has killed and injured far more than COVID in of itself. When you look at the many studies, look at Jessica Rose, look at Denis Rancourt in Canada, look at Steve Kirsch. I mean, the vaccine dose fatality rate, VDFR, in some countries, in India, was 1%. 1 in 100 people allegedly that took it in India not were injured, were killed. Now, the vaccine dose fatality rate in the United States of America was not that high. It was more like 5 per thousand. But do the math. You're looking at the United States of America, whatever, almost 700 million doses, 670 million doses. And if you do the vaccine deaths, according to Denis Rancourt, you're looking at 340,000 Americans dead from the vaccine. Dead. So, that gives us a fatality rate of about 5 or so for every 10,000 people taking the vaccine. So you're looking at least another 28 million people killed and injured, probably double that from the vaccine globally. So this is a horrible blight on science. It's a horrible blight on the world. And the sad part about this is that nobody knows it, or very few people know it, because it's 5th generation warfare.
So double 2856 plus the original 287684. I think the high estimates of World War II are 85 million. So these numbers you're suggesting are 84 million. Yeah, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around that. There's really nowhere to go with that.
When you look at, there was a lady by the name of Frances Oldham Kelsey. Frances Oldham Kelsey. And she must be rolling over in her grave right now. You remember the drug thalidomide?
Mm-hmm. Flipper babies.
Okay. So, in Frances Oldham Kelsey is a hero. She's an American hero. She was the chief scientist in the FDA that wouldn't allow the medical industrial complex to approve the use of thalidomide in the United States of America. Now, there were a lot of people that took it off label, but she wouldn't let them. And, she protected the Americans from this lethal injurious drug. Now, it was nowhere near as lethal and injurious as the COVID-19 vaccine, but one woman stood up to these tyrants and said no and spoke the truth, and she negated it. And she was awarded a very high-ranking, I forget
I
exactly
think
what
the Medal of
president.
Freedom from JFK.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Medal of Freedom from JFK. She must be rolling over. Where are the Francis Oldham Kelseys now? They're all bought. You have Rochelle Walensky. I mean, who's lying through her teeth and who's purchased and who's pushing this drug when she knew in 2021 it was the deadliest drug ever rolled out. And in April, she holds a press conference and she says it's necessary in pregnant women. She knows better. She knew better. She knew the data. So instead of having somebody that had integrity, moral, ethical integrity to, go against the grain, to stand out, to blow the whistle and say, no, not on my watch. This is what our government should be doing. And there's no people like her around anymore in the FDA and the CDC and our government. They're all on the same death narrative, and they're unwilling. They're unwilling to speak the truth to the global population or the American population. It's frightening. It's very disturbing.
On a lighter note than global genocide, uh, when's your new book coming out?
Well, the new book hopefully will be out. Hopefully will be out next month. I finished it. My part. I wrote about 65,000 words and about 22 chapters, and I was done about, I don't know, a month or maybe 6 weeks ago. And I have an incredible co-author, and I did not want anybody ghostwriting this book for me. I wanted a co-author. Um, I, the ghostwriting the books is kind of like what the pharmaceutical companies do. I don't go for that business. So I have an incredible co-author. It's going to be Celia Farber, and she's an incredible investigative journalist. But it's a good book. I don't have a name and I don't have a cover for it yet, although it's getting Celia is working on her edits, and then we'll get it submitted. But it's a really cool book, vaccines and pregnancy, and it's going to go through. There's a lot. The editor wanted a lot more personal stuff in there that I was comfortable putting in, but there's a lot of personal stuff in there. Hopefully, we'll take some of that out. But it's a story of how we got to where we are now, and I've enveloped the story around one of my personal heroes that I've been obsessed about my entire career and really in adolescence. And that's Dr. Semmelweis, Dr. Ignaz Philipp Semmelweis. Does that name ring a bell to you, Tommy?
Yeah, the first time you brought him up, the first time you were on my show, you brought him up, and I think like 2 days before I had done a show in the topic with uh Dr. Aaron Williams, an anesthesiologist. He taught me about the Semmelweis reflex, which it's like the instinctual rejection of any change in, I don't know, like status quo. But yeah, I remember, yeah, when you brought him up, I remember I was
So,
like, oh, I do know that. And you were like, oh, you're so bright. And I was like, no, I'm not. I learned about this 2 days ago.
well, you are bright. I was speaking true. But in the mid 1800s, Ignaz Philipp Semmelweis, he discovered why, in some months, why 50% of perfectly healthy women were going in and having babies and then dying, in the first week after birth or first few days after birth, what he called childbed fever. And that's exactly right. The reflex, he understood why they were dying. He understood exactly that the physicians were causing it, and he implemented a cure yet he was ignored. The exact same thing that's going on today. And, you know, I've been obsessed with Dr. Semmelweis my whole career, and probably went into OB because of him. My mother was a labor and delivery nurse at the University of Michigan hospital, St. Joe's Hospital, and went to that program. And I can remember she delivered me at home, by the way, but I went into obstetrics, and you know, his experience has really shaped me. So what I've done in this book is really cool. I'm comparing the disaster, the obstetrical disaster of Vienna when Dr. Semmelweis was there in Vienna in the mid 1800s with the pandemic now. And it's an incredible comparison and contrasting, because what I've done is I've outlined the Semmelweis hero of this pandemic that I think that and that is Dr. Peter McCullough. He's the Semmelweis hero, and will be portrayed as such in this book. But there's many others. There's many other Semmelweisian heroes that I'm acknowledging, and you know, in this book as well. Yes, Dr. Peter McCullough, I believe, is the one physician that in the world, the one person in this world that is most capable, most qualified of leading us, the world, out of this colossal, catastrophic foobar. No other better name for it. Colossal, catastrophic cluster foobar. He is the most qualified person to lead us out. Unfortunately, they're doubling down on him. But there's many other Semmelweisian heroes that are like that I acknowledge. You know, I mean, you got Pierre Corey, Paul Merrick, you know, you got Lee Merrick, you got Bartlett, you got Ben Marble, you got, you know, Mary Bowden, you got so many others. You got Dan McDyer, my OBGYN whistleblower down here in Florida, Kimberly Biss, my other OBGYN physician down here in Florida, Michelle Gershman. You know, these are all Semmelweisian heroes. But it's interesting. Never in my career would I ever have believed that at age 68, 69, 70 that I am now, that lo and behold, I would be in a situation that made the situation in Vienna in the mid 1800s with Dr. Semmelweis look like a walk in the park. But it's truly the devastation, the death and destruction is colossal, is in logarithmic magnitudes order greater than it was in Vienna in 1849, 1850s, 1846. It's horrible. You know, that disaster was confined largely to one city, really one city, maybe a few hospitals. This is the entire world. This is delusion, mass killing and injuring purposefully on the entire world. But it's the same human sin of what you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, it's you said the logarithmic magnitudes. It's hard to. There's an abstraction to it that's kind of hard to sink your teeth into. You know,
Yeah.
on 9/11, you see it, right? D-Day, you can watch Saving Private Ryan, Hamas attacking Israel. There's something you see it. This is so.
It's fifth generation warfare. People don't see it. People can't comprehend it.
By
People
design.
can't comprehend that their government really don't care about you. They really want you dead and sick. They want you to do what they tell you to do. It's kind of like Klaus Schwab said, you know, you're going to own nothing and be happy in the meta world. This is exactly what the globalists want.
Yeah, you're right. It's by design. It's not a. It's not an accident that it's just this abstract, right? Like you couldn't censor 9/11 if you wanted to, right? You couldn't censor Hamas attacking Israel if you wanted to. Just you can't. It's bombs. You can't. It's not nearly as hard to not only not have people have a visceral reaction to, but then subsequently to censor this stuff. I mean, 40 sigma, 300 sigma.
Yeah, these
It's
are
on, it's on a PowerPoint display. You're like, what is this?
this
What
is
am
like so much moral and ethical injury for people like me that are empaths that know what's going on. You know, man, I was a lot happier, 50 years ago when my eyes weren't opened up to all this evil. Let
sure?
me tell you something. I did do something fun in this book a little bit. I'm not a writer, a non-scientific writer. I can write scientific papers well, and that's why I definitely wanted Celia to be my co-author. But one of the things I've done, do you remember the movie Somewhere in Time?
No,
You don't?
no.
I bet you, was it Christopher Reeves, Superman, that died? Was that
Yeah, I
Christopher
think I
Reeves?
think so.
Yeah. So he probably you should watch it. It's a really, really romantic. It's one of my favorite movies. And I guess I like romance movies, but this is a really cool romance movie. It's called Somewhere in Time, and it takes place in the upper. It's. Do you know where the Grand Hotel in Mackinac Island is?
I've
It's
heard
a
the name.
it's a beautiful, beautiful. It's been around for 150 or a couple hundred years, I think. Beautiful, beautiful resort on the island of Mackinac Island, between the upper and lower peninsula there, and just on the east side of the bridge, several miles over Mackinac Bridge. But anyways, it turns out Christopher Reeves had this interaction with this older person who had, and he became mesmerized with this, um, apparently a watch that this old lady had given him. And he got on a rabbit trail. He got obsessed, and he went up to um, this Grand Hotel. It's a really cool movie where he went back in time, and he had actually had a relationship with this woman much, 100 whatever, many years before. So anyways, the book is kind of based on that. So I put myself, since Dr. Semmelweis has always, um, I've always been kind of obsessed with him and his books and his history and what he did, and he's had a huge influence on me. So I put myself back in reporting as a second year medical student at University of Vienna Medical School in 1849, July 1st, 1849, where I reported to my first clinical lecture, and Dr. Semmelweis was lecturing. And so I kind of have this going back and forth in time to where I learned from Ignaz and go down to the autopsy room and realize what his theories were, and then come back to the modern. So it's kind of a cool interplay like that throughout the book, that's going to be fun. And there's some other personal stuff in there that put me in the position where I'm in now.
That sounds sick. I like that. I don't know if I'd want to go. I had a friend ask me, and well, I guess we'll wrap it up with this. But I guess it kind of the anti antithesis, antithetical, the opposite of what you just said. I had a friend the other night ask me, he's like, "What advice would you give someone on how to start a podcast?" And I said that, like me, I'd go get a biology degree, and I would get into medical school. What I would then do is I would go to medical school and get my MD. Then I would go through residency and I'd become a physician. I would get married, and I'd have a family. And he said, "What does that have to do with starting a podcast?" And I said, "Nothing, because it has been a trip of horrors." I would do the opposite. I say that kiddingly. I wouldn't do the opposite, but yeah, I like your take on it more. You have a very beautiful take on it. Mine is turn the other way and sprint, because it is unveiled. I think I'd probably be happier. I think I'd be happier not knowing everything I know, interviewing people like you and Dr. Malone and Dr. McCullough. But at the same time, there's definitely a peace that comes with, when you know in your heart that you did the right thing. And you know it's the right thing because it doesn't feel good, and it is the opposite of what all your instincts are telling you. You just go
That's
along,
right.
shut up, put your head down. It
You
doesn't feel
know,
good.
um, there's been several times in my life, Tommy, where I wanted to end my life, literally, because of
Sure.
a lot of the tribulation that I've been through in many parts of my life. And but now I realize that God meant me to be here for a time such as this. I realize that there's nothing more important that I am doing for God and for my patients. You take all the other things I've done my entire career since I graduated from medical school, nothing compares to the importance of the work that God has appointed me to do now. And this is a divine assignment. And, knowing that I am speaking the truth at great peril, um, to myself and my wife, and have suffered a lot. There's a peace in me that, for the first time in my life, has really given me a peace, a sense of knowing what my assignment is from God, and knowing that, yes, I'm a sinner. Yes, I fall short of the glory of God. Yes, I get angry, but I'm doing the right thing, and I'm standing for the right things, and I'm standing for the truth. And God says in 2 Samuel, I will honor those who honor me. And what I do know is that, despite my shortcomings and despite your shortcomings, any that you perceive you have, you're honoring God. And the spiritual law of reap and sow, or which is in Galatians, you reap what you sow. Jesus said that over and over. And I know that he is smiling on you, um, caressing you, slapping you on the back and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. That's what he's doing to you. And that's what he's doing to me and others who are standing up for the truth. This is why we're here. We're here to protect the sons and daughters of our most high living God. And, there's a sense of peace that the more that I speak for truth, the bolder and more courageous and more peace that I get. And, Tommy, unfortunately, the opposite is true for those who are living the lie. For those that are living the lie, and my colleagues that are, pushing this and staying in the system and collecting their paychecks and not speaking the truth, the more you live in a lie, the greater propensity you will have to lie more. And the more you lose your soul, literally selling your soul to Satan, you lose your soul. And you become increasingly distraught, increasingly losing peace, and increasingly understanding that you've lost your purpose of life. And the only thing that can change that around is repentance and admitting that this is a lie and speaking the truth. And that's what I hope, and that's what I think that you're accomplishing is by your podcast, is that you are speaking truth, you are bringing out the truth to the world, and you're helping to combat this horrible fifth generation warfare that are killing innocent people globally. So thank you for what you're doing, and don't give up, and don't be distraught, and be of good cheer.
Yeah, I definitely have trouble with that. Like a like on paper, like and I'm like I know I'm doing the right thing, but it's very easy to, world's smallest violin. It's very easy to start. Woe is me. This is so hard. Why do I have to do this? Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't really have anywhere to go from there. I guess I mean, truly, I think I just kind of need to grow a pair and stop complaining. I don't know if that's just like the Irish Catholic Puritan in me. It's like, shut up, work harder. But that might be the answer. I think I need to be
We have a
more of
lot in
cheer.
common. I've been badgered by that spirit my whole life too.
Yeah,
But I think that um, you are doing an incredible job, and you know, be at peace, and trust in God. Right? He's brought you along this far. You've you've been through a lot of tribulation too. I'm aware of the tribulation that you've been through, and you're fighting the good fight. And hang in there, brother.
I'm in I'm in Portland, Maine, and there's a I didn't know this. I always thought. I mean, I'm from New Hampshire. My dad's from New Hampshire. Dad. I didn't know this, but my dad was telling me that actually, I guess that the first Carrigans from Ireland were in Portland. I guess sometime in the 1800s, and I think they like went to that church. It's been here forever, and
Wow.
yeah, no, but I just like to kind of imagine like there's nothing new under the sun. It's probably 200 years ago, probably on these same fucking roads. There's probably some Carrigan walking on going, "Shut up, repent, work harder for the Lord." Like,
Yeah.
stop being such a pussy. Like, I kind of like now I'm in a building looking down. There's cars driving around in an airport, and it's just the same pale skin, blue eye. Just like,
Yeah.
shut up. Be
Yeah.
thankful for what you have. You,
Yeah.
you whining. You don't know nothing. You don't know what it's like to be out of potatoes.
Yeah.
So, maybe there is nothing new under the sun. It's just like, yeah, man, we're gonna walk these streets for all of eternity, self-flagellating. So get over it. Work harder. I don't know. That's the best conclusion I have. Excuse my French, Dr. Thorpe.
That's really, really good. I like that. Yeah.
I apologize. I get a little too passionate sometimes, and I
Absolutely not.
let the f bombs fly. Let them flow freely. But Dr. Thorpe, I say for now, we wrap this one up.
All right.
Please do. Obviously we text, but I mean, let me know when the book comes out.
I will.
I'd love to read it and love to have you on for it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Dr. Thorpe, from the bottom of my heart, I love you, sir. Thank you.
Love you, brother. Keep up the good work.
Thank you,
Take care.
sir. Guys, please go in the description. Please go follow him and his beautiful bride Maggie on Twitter. I am not on Twitter anymore. I'm permanently banned from there too. Whatever. I don't care. Dr. Thorpe, take care, man.